From the earliest days, the Western has been the bread and butter movie of the film industry. From 1913 to the present, Hollywood has produced over 2,000 feature films on cowboys and Indians. The idea that Indians are quaint and strange but not quite human is an idea created and perpetuated by Hollywood movies. Hi, I'm Will Sampson. The movies have constantly shown the Indian as a savage warrior, a renegade, a killer of innocent pioneer women and children, and a merciless scalper who used the most cruel means of torture in his vicious attacks against the white man. That is the legacy that Hollywood has left the Indian people. It is our worldwide image. This is a third in a series of programs dealing with how and why it happened, and examining the effects that these Hollywood images, which are seen on television and movie screens throughout the world, is having on our people, especially our youngsters. You know, for most people, the Native American remains invisible unless he looks like the Hollywood Indian.
We waited years for you to say that you were wrong to have pictured us this way. But it's too late, the time has come for all false images to come undone.
Excuse me, sir, would you mind stepping out of the way while I take a picture of the Indian?
Look at the Indian, isn't he cute?
If you ask Europeans what they would like to see in the United States, most would say cowboys and Indians. Like our friend the tourist there, they would probably go home with pictures of the costume, quote, Indian. Like me, these real Indians would be invisible.
I've been walking these streets so long.
Invisible, too, if it weren't for the braids, would be Indian entertainer Phil Lucas, who is also one of the producers of Images of Indians.
Sidewalks of Broadway. Well, hustle's the name of the game, and nice guys get washed away like the snow in the rain. There's been a load of compromising on the road to my horizon, but I'm gonna be where the lights are shining on me like a rhinestone Indian. I couldn't bring myself to do it the other way, you know what I mean?
This program is about Indian actors and entertainers.
Who's got a head to match up with a raven? Who's got the prairie sun in every smile? Who's got good credit yet with old Mother Nature? Ooh, native North American child. Sing about your ebony African queen. Sing about your lily white, lily Molly. Beauty by the bushel, but the girls of the hour are the native North American prairie flies. Cherokee, Muskogee, Fox, and Passamaquoddy. Winnebago, Haida, Mohawk, Soto, and Sioux. Tuscarora, Yaqui, Pima, Ponca, Oneida. Native North American child.
Indians are always used for comic relief. You never see a picture of Indians just smoking a cigarette, who invented it anyway. You never see a picture of Indian using deodorant. And if they want an Indian, he's always got to wear the headdress. He's always going to be in the past. We're not allowed to be contemporary. When Indians can be killed in the movie, there's no feeling or anything because we've been dehumanized. You know, we've always been props or atmosphere, mascots. You always see the Cleveland Indians. You see the Milwaukee Braves or Atlanta Braves, the Bucks. You know, animals. Bears, lions, cubs, and the Indians. You know, you don't see the Washington White Boys or the Cleveland Caucasians. You know, I mean, you know, or the Negroes. I mean, it's the Indian. It's all right to have a mascot.
Were you able to find any models for you in the Indian tradition?
Comedian, comedy-wise, a lot of models I guess I've used were other comedians and stuff. Dick Gregory, Will Rogers was an Indian, so I don't like to be labeled as the only one or so. And Jonathan Winters is Indian. I don't know their tribes. That's always a label, you know. They always get introduced to, well, we've had a Jewish comedian, Irish comedian, now we got an Indian comedian. I didn't like that label, but I guess we're labeled that. So I changed it to it was Indian comedian after that, and now it's, I like comedian. It kind of comes with both grounds. That's me, see.
John, I know of an Indian comedian who says you're Indian.
I want to believe, honestly, that I'm a 16th. And I was told that by my father. The boy, of course, taken for granted when he told it to me, he was lying on a worn Persian rug, which he had captured. And I think he was having some menins at the time, a little shaving lotion. We were a little short on funds, but we were looking up at a painting, and he said, this is on the Winters side. So I want to believe that, as I say. If it isn't true, then I've made a mistake. If it is true, I'm a lot happier.
How much of the Hollywood stereotype do you use in your work?
I use quite a bit of the stereotype because most non-Indians who I perform to, that's all they know is a stereotype. And also, when I see all those movies with the Hollywood Indian, all my material's written for me.
Hey, Duke, real Indians, we'll be attacked. Hey, run the freight cars in a circle. Put the freight cars in a circle.
Now, come on, boys.
Send the Pony Express out.
Souvenirs.
Oh, boy.
Souvenirs.
We're gonna...
He sells souvenirs. Oh, yes. Step over to my shop. I sell Indian spring water. With every bottle, I give away a bow and arrow.
You give away a bow and arrow?
Yes.
How do you like that? All my life I wanted a bow and arrow. I wish I had one now. I'd knock off a lot of Indians.
Yeah. You want to get us in trouble with these Indians?
Shush. Don't be scared of any Indians. You show me one Indian, I'll show you a coward.
I'm an Indian.
I'm a coward.
So I just reflect it and show it back to people. I try to use it to shatter the stereotype. Because that's all everybody knows. Indians are being stupid, simple, ignorant, uncouth, and primitive people, more or less.
Okay, what kind of reaction do you get from the audience when you get heavy into stereotypes?
It blows my mind. I think most people, non-Indians, have like a fourth grade awareness of Indian people. And when I talk to them, one club I was working, a woman says to me, are you really Indian? I said, yeah. She said, well, why you wear glasses? You know, so, I mean, I'm not putting you on, you know. And so if you're watching, what else was there? Another time I worked, a woman said to me, she said, you know, I never heard of a funny Indian. And I thought it was funny, but also sad, because Indians aren't supposed to have a sense of humor. Indians aren't supposed to laugh or cry or any kind of feelings.
Well, I was sitting alongside the window, and a gentleman had put his fake Gucci bag over the rack there, and he sat down, and we got to talking about a lot of things. At any rate, he said, well, are you part Indian? And I told him my 16th story, and he said, well, that's not very much, is it? And I said, no, I think probably both this part of my hand and my shoulder. He said, do you speak any Indian at all? And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I said, you have to speak a little bit of Indian, you know, to get into any reservation. It's a good idea. He said, how would you describe this plane? I said, very difficult. In English, very simple in Blackfeet. It would be like this was a great bird, which in many respects it is, you know, and inside the bird, it's the mother bird with its children in it. And I went into the thing and said, Matikwahai sanakehe no hopai, ike no chia, isehe no po, chiki mo no, ite saha, which meant the children are in the bird, in the mother bird. And I said, the mother bird will land. She will cry, which means gasoline will come out of her nose, and you know, it's expensive, and you'd cry too. We're all crying about gasoline. And then the pilots, which are the strong ones, will leave her. And the ladies, the stewardesses, and then all the children, which are many denominations, including you and I. We must get out of the mother bird now. Isi sugapi, which means goodbye. And that's the one authentic thing I was telling you.
I just talk about how the pilgrims came to this land, they were illegal aliens. We called them whitebacks, you know. And, well, I had to do the Johnny Carson show on Thanksgiving, and all day I was reading all this information about Thanksgiving. By the time it came for the show, I was so damn mad reading all this stuff because it was from the Indian point of view. I think the tribe, within 50 years, 99% of them wiped out. I mean, boy, they went quick on that stuff. And they signify Thanksgiving for being the beginning of the white man in America, which is also the end of us.
Mm-hmm.
And people always say, do you celebrate Thanksgiving? You know?
Yeah. It's like I saw an ad on television the other day, and it showed a pilgrim who was advertising turkey, is what it was, for Thanksgiving dinner. And the wife was off stage, and after he gets through with his spiel about the turkey and everything, and air comes through his hat, and off stage he says, "I think your guests have arrived," you know, which is...
See? You know where scalping came from? Because the hecklers always yell that stuff. They go, ooh, you know, stuff I've never seen an Indian do. And the guy says, hey, scalp him, Indian, scalp him. And I said, you know where scalping came from? He didn't know. I said, it came from the European. I said, we'd never think of anything so brutal.
Though the image of the Indian as scalper and lurking menace was strong in the early days of America, strong, too, was the image of Indians as romantic children of nature. These nature images appealed to early filmmakers, for much of the fascination with early films was in the moving object. And Indians, as outdoor, forest people, were ideal subjects for the simple romantic plots. These silent films were musicals in a sense, for the use of mood music was an important part of the experience. Indians were subjects for plays and musicals long before film came along. In fact, 10 years before the American independence. In 1766, Major Robert Rogers wrote Pontiac, or The Savages of America. This was one of the early known dramas about Indians. The play was reverse stereotyping, with the savage so noble he was godlike, and the white so evil he was the devil incarnate. Perhaps Rogers was trying to ease his conscience, for this was the same Major Rogers of Rogers Rangers who had destroyed an Abenaki village in 1759. King Vidor's film, Northwest Passage, made Roberts into a hero. It ignored his My Lai-style massacre of Abenaki women and children by making it seem that the village contained only warriors.
The only influence I remember in Northwest Passage is the book, going by the book itself. And that's the whole idea of the book, is to go up and wipe out the village, wipe out Abenaki village. But I'll take some of the blame for that one-sided viewpoint, no question about it. And you see, the whole idea of drama of films, you're looking for drama, so you're looking for conflict. And to have conflict, you have to have the good guys and the bad guys. You have to have two sides. And there's a great tendency to just generalize and have the bad guys be Indians.
Many of our men were gone to fight with Montcalm in Quebec City. The warriors were. So at home there were old people, children, and hunters. And they had gone hunting and they had come back and they were very happy because they'd done well. And they were dancing and singing and celebrating it. And then, because our warriors were coming back from Quebec City, they were warned. And they're the one that pursued Major Roger and his men, and they split all their canoes, so they couldn't use their boats for going back, and they had to take a different road. It was a terrible time for our people, but he did not kill all our people like it says in the film or in the book.
We figured that the fellow who wrote the book, he wrote many of those books. He's a historian. I don't remember how much actual research about the actual thing we did, but Kenneth Roberts is a historian and wrote a lot of books about early American history, and you sort of figured that he wasn't just overnight historical writer, that he knew what he was doing.
Between the War for Independence and the Civil War, hundreds of plays were written about the noble savage. Perhaps the two most famous were Pocahontas and Hiawatha, but the most successful was Metamora, or The Last of the Wampanoags, by John Augustus Stone. It created both fame and fortune for Edwin Forrest, the first great American actor who played Metamora, in the play's first presentation in 1829. Edwin Forrest began a tradition of white actors playing Indians that proved to be most acceptable to the movies. This picture, Braveheart, was produced by Cecil B. DeMille and directed by Alan Hale Sr. Hale was merely stating a widespread Hollywood belief when he wrote for the press. White men make better motion picture actors than the red men themselves. A white man with strong features resembles the Indian more than the Indian does himself. Rod LaRoque is the image of the Indian on the screen, whereas the various full-blooded chiefs working in Braveheart make indifferent Indians photographically.
There's actors, and then there's Indian actors. Actors can act, and Indian actors can act Indians. I spent the first half of my life as white.
Mm-hmm.
I'm half Indian, half white. And I didn't know about it at the time. And my first half of my life as white, I was a very successful actor during those years, playing whites and Indians, incidentally, with wigs. And I decided the last half of my life I was going to live as an Indian. Suddenly my jobs went like that, cut off. From being one of the top 10 actors in television, I went down to zilch.
Because of the transition.
Because of the transition. And since that time, nobody has ever hired me for anything but an Indian. I remember reading in the Times, I'm not sure the columnist, one of the columnists was writing about Academy Awards and so on, and the possibilities, and Dan George was being mentioned as a possibility for an Academy Award.
Grandfather?
Am I still in this world?
Yes, Grandfather.
I was afraid of that. Well, sometimes the magic works, sometimes it doesn't.
And they said, well, whoever's going to give an Indian an Academy Award for playing an Indian? He says, that's ridiculous. Well, that's the kind of thinking I'm talking about, you know. It's that kind of thinking that keeps an Indian actor from being an actor.
Can you remember the times that you have held your head high and told all your friends of your Indian claim? Proud good lady and proud good man, some great-great-grandfather from Indian blood sprang, and you feel you're part of these ones. Well, it's all in the past, they will say, but it's still going on here today. The governments now want the Iroquois land, that of the Eskimo and the Cheyenne. Let's hear it now, you must help us, dear man, now that the buffalo's gone.
In your comedy routine, do you ever work any Indian routine?
Oh, yeah.
Something
Oh,
like
yes.
that?
I started out years ago, I guess about 20, well, I've been in this business going on 30 years, and one of my routines was Custer's Last Stand. And the last line, of course, it's the Indians and the Sioux and the number of Sioux, the number of the cavalry, the whole thing. And the last line in the picture is there's an Indian, and he's playing taps, and it's da-da-da-da-da-da. And then looks down at the horn, and he says, not bad. First time play, white man horn.
The government writes a lot of our material, and I'll do a joke and I record all my stuff. And if it doesn't go over, I gotta think, is it too intimidating, or they just don't know, or is it just not a funny joke anyway? Whereas you get your review right at that minute. Whereas if you're on the stage, the next day you read the review, if you stunk or you were great, right there they'll let you know. And if you're really bad, if you're playing the Indians, they'll let you know right away. Everybody I meet, a comedian, it's like people always try to prove that they too have a sense of humor. You know, it's just like you're Indian. I know some Indians. You know, I joke. I know some jokes. You know, like in Hollywood, they ask me, "You really Indian?" And I go back home to Oneida. They say, "You really a comedian?" You know, there's no end to it. You know, the media has been a brainwashing technique in this country. You know, every time Indian's been in the movies, he's the bad guy. And they never talked about how it's Indian families versus armies. We never had no armies, you know. And it was, I read somewhere that forts were attacked maybe 6 times over 100 years. You see in the movie, you think we did that every damn day, you know, get up, run the fire, attack the fort. And it's amazing how that is. They treat genocide real lightly. I saw a movie with, I wasn't with him, I saw a movie with Bob Hope, and it was called Paleface or The Son of Paleface or something. And in the movie, he's shooting Indians, and they're falling neat stacks in the body, and each bullet, he's telling jokes to his girlfriend.
There's a pile for you.
You know, treating genocide real lightly.
We was wrong about that tender. Doing some mighty fancy shooting. Bad bullet. Let's keep it neat.
Will Rogers was a Cherokee from Oklahoma and one of our great natural humorists. He was also one of the few Indians to successfully play whites in movies. Here, he mimics Rudolph Valentino in Blood and Sand. And Douglas Fairbanks Sr. in Robin Hood.
But you are an American citizen.
Well, I think I am. Folks, Indian, both my mother and father had Cherokee blood in them. Born and raised in Indian Territory. Of course, I'm not these Americans whose ancestors come over on the Mayflower, but we met them at the boat when they landed.
This land was made for you and me. And here's how my people sing the song. This land was our land, it wasn't your land, until we sold you Manhattan Island.
There is a new image for Indians in the entertainment world. Perhaps it is a rediscovery of the kind of heritage epitomized by Will Rogers, or perhaps a growing confidence in the truths of the Indian way of life. Whatever it is, it has spawned a new force in the media.
When I started, I guess like you too, you had to do it yourself, you know. And as far as being a comedian, you're gonna have to teach yourself.
The only man who can understand the Indian mind is the Indian, and therefore he must take a much more prominent part in whatever Hollywood does that involves Indians from now on.
A remarkable thing about Old Fishhawk, which Will Sampson is starring in, is that it's probably the first film that I'm aware of in which an Indian stars in the film. It's the first film that has really, in a sense, gone back to the roots, which is to use what is true. And in that particular sense, I think that's an extraordinary change for American film.
My pa says you had a small boy like me once, but he died from the smallpox.
Just about your age when it happened.
I'm real sorry.
There's no need. It happened a long time ago. A long time ago.
Well, at least he was lucky to have an Indian as a father. My pa's just a farmer.
Old dog. He knows I'm going after bear and he wants to get at it.
Those bear claws you're wearing, is that from a bear you killed?
My first bear.
Must have been a fierce bear.
Well, he looked fierce enough to me.
Someday I'm gonna get me some bear claws.
You can have those if you want them.
I can have them?
They're yours.
Gee, thanks. I'll give you back a present as soon as I think up on what.
There's no need.
Can I go hunt the bear with you?
You'll have to ask your pa.
Ask his pa what?
Well, the boy here wants to go out up the bear with me.
Careful with that pipe. Don't aim to have this barn set afire. Your supper all right?
I've never had better.
Only beans and side meat. You crave more beans?
I wouldn't want to put you through the trouble.
No trouble. Well, you don't eat, the dogs get.
I'll go get it.
No, your pa'll do that. You're going to bed. Now get.
Good night.
Night.